So, why the cold open? Well, Kevin and I discovered, along with the rest of the world, 2 days ago that Ozzy Osbourne passed. It is a tragic end to a wonderful life. It's a shame that his affliction had to kind of like take him down the way that it did over time. But he did, get to celebrate with the world a few weeks ago at the Back to the Beginning, Black Sabbath tribute. And Kevin and I made a video, though, a few days before Ozzy died. And that video will follow this cold intro if you so desire to watch it. However, the reason that I wanted to put this intro in is that I did make one comment within the video that follows that I don't necessarily regret, but I think that now, given the circumstances of Ozzy's death, I think that I can answer the question that I posed. And the question that I posed was, I hope that he is doing this concert for himself and as a celebration of the fans. And I think, given the fact that he's died so soon after the performance, he knew his time was limited. And I think that we can answer that question now with an empathetic yes. Kevin and I were critical, though, of the overall concert experience, not necessarily anything about Black Sabbath or Ozzy's solo performances. However, the way the festival was put together, we had some critiques. If you're interested in hearing those critiques, by all means, listen to the rest of the video, watch the rest of the video, and add your input to the comments. However, if you prefer to honor Ozzy and the performance without any sort of who are we? You don't need our input. But if you're interested in our input, please feel free, but I do want to put this right up front. If you don't want to hear what we have to say, click off this video right now. Just be done, and we appreciate the 3 minutes you spent with us. And now I just wanted to see if Kevin had anything to add before we fade into our usual episode.
I think you said it all, Tris. I think we all have a lifetime of meaningful connection to Ozzy's work and the work of Black Sabbath in general.
Of course.
And so you'll see a lot of celebration of that in what we discuss ahead of this video. And the rest of it kind of gets into the surroundings of the day and the scene of rock music in general today. And so there's other things to get into and talk about. But as far as Ozzy and Sabbath are concerned, we are nothing but celebratory about their life, their work, and right up to the end, how they made it a celebration for everyone. So thanks, Tris.
Absolutely. One of the biggest influences on my guitar playing and my songwriting. And also, you don't necessarily hear it in my voice, but Ozzy was an inspiration because he showed that you didn't have to go to the traditional means of crafting, a melody in the traditional ways. He came up with his own unique take that has influenced so many people ever since. All right. Well, just sad that Ozzy passed, and decide if you want to watch the video or not. You take care. Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I'm joined by my dear friend Kevin Gamble. We're going to be covering a question that he asked from me about recent content on the channel, and then hopping right into the topic for today. So Kevin, what was the question that you had?
Well, you've had some interesting, diverse content on the channel recently, one of which was a custom neck that you ordered from Canada, and your first impressions of that. And just had a couple quick questions for you about that. First off, in the current situation we're in with trade, I wondered if there were any extra headaches or hassles or costs in ordering the neck from Canada. I know it's a fluid situation right now with that country, but how did that turn out for you as far as the logistics of getting your order, and whether you had to pay anything extra?
There was no additional charges. As far as I can tell, the tariffs did not affect my order whatsoever. The long delay was not due to shipping. It shipped, and it got here within like 5 or 6 days, after they put it in the box. It was just them getting it to the box that took quite some time. apparently not that much time. Somebody left a comment on the video saying that they waited 6 months for their body and neck from the same company. It sounds like they have high quality control standards and they make really good stuff, but it sounds like they're a little understaffed, if I had to guess. But which is unfortunate, great. I was happy with the product. So, but no additional charges.
Good. That's good to know, because it's a kind of a mysterious situation for a lot of people right now. So I'm glad that was pretty smooth, and hopefully we'll encourage others to keep doing that and keep the business going. But I know you've got another guitar restoration transformation project in the works. Folks can check out the recent shorts to see the guitar saved from the dumpster, which I think is going to be a really good one for people to track, because that's kind of like what the heck am I going to do with this random guitar I didn't even anticipate, which I think could be an opportunity for some people to see the potential for that. But apart from that project, which I think hopefully people will be following, what is your plan for this new neck? What is its future going to be?
Well, it's going to be going onto one of my offset guitars, and I don't want to say anything more than that because I want to kind of keep it a little bit of a surprise. So, but it's destined for a very cool project for the future. So,
awesome.
But it's going to require some work. I mean, like I said, I ordered it relatively unfinished. The cost of the neck being what it was mainly due to the fact that I did have the frets pressed in there at the factory, and I did have block inlays, which added considerable cost to the neck. The base price, though, just for people to know, of a neck with dot inlays and no frets installed whatsoever is only like $59. So to get like
nice.
a quality neck at that price is pretty cool.
Excellent.
All right, well let's jump into the topic. We're a little behind the curve on this, but not too much, because I'm still seeing a lot of stories coming out about. I just read one this morning that Megadeth got snubbed because they weren't invited to play it. Back to the beginning. Black Sabbath's big finale. The end of the road. I guess that's the way I would characterize it. Hopefully, it is the end of the road right there. But the big celebration from a few weeks ago. I wanted to frame this, since I don't want my take on this or what I've seen of it. I have not seen it in total. I have not seen it from start to finish, every minute of every performance. I want to be very clear about that. And I'll discuss a little bit of why that is as we go along. But I wanted to get Kevin's take on it first for 4 basic kind of categories as we go along, and we'll kind of keep this brief. But Kevin, what was your assessment of the performance, start to finish, the overall show? Like, what did you or every performance that you have seen? What was, would you give it a grade? Would you just, ride the nostalgia train and go, oh, it was cool? What is your brief summary of what you thought of the overall concert?
Well, it seemed like kind of a hodgepodge to me. It seemed to maybe lack a little bit of focus and be a little all over the map. And almost every individual performance to me was a mix of highs and lows. And for me, the low maybe would be, it seemed like there were a lot of sort of struggling vocal performances. Like, I felt like the bands were solid, the players were solid. But when it came to the lead vocals, it was really hit or miss. There were some success stories mixed in there. I thought Lizzie Hale did a good job with singing. She's got sort of a Pat Benatar thing going, which works and is solid. For me, the standout lead vocalist of probably the whole shebang was probably Steven Tyler. Even though he just came out and did Aerosmith stuff, it was like, okay, this is what it's like to have a really charismatic, strong lead vocal presence in the middle of all the, the stuff going on, and that made the others kind of, seem that much dodgier. And I don't want to go through and itemize the ones I didn't think were great, but it just seemed like there was a lot of struggling going on. But musically, there were some, it was kind of a hodgepodge as well because of the mixed performers. I think Nuno Betancourt carried a disproportionate load of the musical pyrotechnics, being able to deliver the flashy stuff all throughout the variety of material. I think he really pulled a big share of the load.
I would agree.
It was great to see Jake. It was great to see Jake E. Lee back in the mix, even though he seemed a little buried in the mix and buried under the number of other guitarists in his performance. Would have loved to see him do "Bark at the Moon," but I can understand the physical limits he's dealing with, having just been shot recently and so forth. But so there were some highlights scattered throughout. Overall, it seemed a little random, and I don't know if that's getting back to what you alluded to, like with Megadeth, and the rationale behind who Tom Morello brought in, and maybe who didn't accept an invitation we never knew about, but it seemed a little random. It seemed to leave out some notable people. You mentioned Megadeth, Judas Priest. You could think of other
wasn't KK
bands that could be involved, but yeah, I'll cut it off there. But that was my impression musically.
I think KK Dowling was there for one of the supergroup performances, and
he did well, I thought.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he had Billy Corgan singing, which was atrocious.
Okay, I didn't want to name names, but you.
I'll name. That's why I let you go first. You can be the good guy, and I'll be the bad guy. I thought overall, I mean, saying that it felt like a hodgepodge was being kind. I felt like it was a bad high school talent show. It was a mess, I thought. The two standout performances that I saw overall was Alice in Chains, because William Duvall can sing, and he wasn't trying to sing like anybody but William Duvall. So he put out a very solid performance, and Alice in Chains is still a functioning creative force too. It's not like they're sitting around. They're not sitting around playing greatest hits on their tours. They play their latest album, and that's because Jerry Cantrell is interested in writing new material, and so there felt like there was fire there. And Tool. I thought Tool is also still a viable artistic platform. You may not like them to taste, but you cannot fault their technical ability and the fact that everybody is still fully functioning in that band. I had the opposite reaction when I saw Steven Tyler and Aerosmith and whatever that was. I just felt like, oh, here we go again, and I felt like that with a lot of the performances from especially the old guard artists, where it's like, how many times are these people going to trot out and in tribute to somebody else just do their thing, and it's very tired. It's so tired. And I was thoroughly disgusted by most of it. I found it hard to watch in a lot of places, which brings me to the most important performance of the day, though, which was going to be, the original four members. They did, 4 songs? The original 4 members of Black Sabbath with their final, and you can't help but have that little emotional rise, that like, oh my goodness, this is the last time that these people will ever make sounds together. And it's kind of miraculous they even got up there to begin with. So credit where credit is due. Yeah. What was your take on the Sabbath performance?
Well, I think you already summed it up pretty well. It really did feel like the end of the road, like they were at the very limit of what they were capable of. Of course, that mostly has to do with Ozzy and Bill Ward and their physical limitations. Ozzy, I'm glad he did it. It had some emotional impact. It was a little hard to watch too. It almost reminded me of like the last Phil Collins run on the last Genesis tour, where it's like you really, empathized and wanted to see them doing better. And Bill Ward, he was at his limits too. I actually I got a kick out of Bill Ward for 2 reasons. One is that there was something kind of primal about his presence up there, shirtless, at the top of the ensemble, just grinding it out. But also even his drumming, it wasn't like a full-fledged, full-on what he might have done in the past, but it felt real to me. It felt like a real drummer playing real composed parts, not just mindless fills and a lot of noise and technical barrage, but it felt like somebody, having intention. And it reminded me of sort of the way that maybe rock drumming used to be more, which is more individual, more composed, more every hit counting, and not just a blaze of notes. Of course, Geezer and Iommi were in great form, as they always were. That was not a question. So, a mixed bag overall, far from anything resembling one of their great performances, but had some fascinating aspects to it that I appreciated. So, that's the good cop. Is there a bad good cop, or do you have something to celebrate in that performance too?
I hope. Here's what I have to say, and I agree with your assessment of Ward. I thought Ward did fine. I mean, what do you expect from somebody his age, and especially given the energy of those parts originally? He can still swing, and that's the thing that I found lacking in, and this is a good opening for me just to throw this little interjection in. The thing that all the bands who covered Sabbath were missing was that they didn't have Sabbath's listening background. Sabbath, they were all influenced by Sabbath, so they were very squared off and flat-footed and just very rooted in this kind of freight train thing. Bill Ward can swing, man. He's got jazz, he's got blues. His heroes were all from the old school of the 50s and big band drummers and stuff like that. Black Sabbath, the thing that it always had is it could swing, man. I mean, yes. It had a groove. There was a groove to it, and that was all Bill Ward. Because Iommi can play bluesy stuff, and Geezer doesn't have really any Motown in him whatsoever. He's got more blues riffs too, but Bill Ward always brought the swing to that band, and that's what made them different. It's not typical just, heavy metal, kind of thing. I'd say the same thing about Priest, too. But anyway, because those people grew up on different music than the people who grew up on them. Yeah. I hope, back to my looking at the sky, I hope that this is something that Ozzy really wanted to do. Yeah. I hope that in his heart of hearts that he felt like he was giving something or getting something out of this that meant a lot to him, and that he wasn't just, oh, everybody says I should do this, so I should do this, because that's been kind of one of his tropes in the past, is you're not sure how much of Ozzy is autonomous and how much of it is being operated from behind the scenes by Sharon or somebody else, Because if he wasn't fully invested, if he was kind of I don't want to say coerced or duped, that's just too cruel to say, but if he was being used in some way or taken advantage of or convinced to do something he wasn't, let's put it this way, convinced to do something he wasn't 100% sure of. If that happened, it's tragic. It's awful. But if he actually was in that moment and delivering what he felt was a genuine show of affection to the audience and to himself and to his bandmates, I can live with that. But if there was any other machination happening behind the scenes, or if he, who knows what he was saying to people, 2 days before the show, I don't want to do this. If any of that was happening, it's reprehensible. But otherwise, it's his. If he made that choice himself, then good on him. So he did what he wanted to do. I just really hope that is the truth.
Yes. I hope that time will prove that to be true, and we won't hear those other things come out over time.
Yeah. Which brings me to nostalgia. Has nostalgia gone too far? I mean, this is we're really looking at a lot of things that happened on that stage where, whoops, didn't mean to hit the mic. A lot of things happening on that stage where it's the Rolling Stones kind of set a template, and I think that it's kind of a wacky one, I know that a lot of blues artists, too, worked until their deaths, into advanced old age, but a lot of that's because they didn't make any money. They never got paid, so they had to keep working to, pay for their club. I'm thinking Chuck Berry. I'm thinking, a lot of people who just had to grind their whole lives because there was no other option. Most of the people we saw up on that stage who are let's say 70 or older, are set. They don't need money and they don't need any more accolades. When is it enough? That's my question. It seems like all these people are going to keep playing or trying to put on the show until they die. And I just don't know if that's the right way to do it. I look at the Police as a template for how you exit your moment. With taste. I see Rush as another. They were pushing age, and Lifeston. It was really only Geddy that felt like he could just keep rolling forever. Lifeston, and Peart obviously both had physical issues leading up to that last tour, where they were just kind of like, I don't know if we can do this kind of tour again, because they had a standard. I want to just give a brief thing. I would never go out and play on a stage. I don't play live anymore, and I haven't. And I made that decision in my mid-30s because I was just kind of like, I don't feel like, I feel like there's these younger people coming up. This is their stage now, and I was saying that in my 30s, and so I'm just wondering, has it just gone too far?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's all new territory because we've this is the first time we've reached this point with this many generations of rock musicians kind of functioning at the same time, and so I think, I don't know, I think obviously a lot of these particular musicians are relatively, some of them have been relatively out of the performing limelight for a while, but I had kind of a related feeling about watching these performances. Is maybe it was just because of who was asked, and it's a little bit of more than a little bit of a hodgepodge, but it didn't feel to me like the generations kind of coming up behind Black Sabbath. I mean, Black Sabbath is at the very end of the road in this show, and it was still arguably the most interesting performance of the whole thing. And so you've got this whole range of bands leading up to them. Where was the great performance in this show? Where was the band that's just like the voice of this generation? Where is the band that is really the face and the identity of rock music now? It felt a little sparse, a little scattered, a little fragmented.
I don't think it's out there.
Yeah, and so that's a whole other series of discussions in itself. But it's an interesting juxtaposition where you've got the veteran acts still in the limelight, and whether it's a market failing or maybe some of that diluted artistic thing you alluded to, where influences become a little more narrow, and where's the spark, where's the interest? I'm not sure. It's an interesting time where it feels like there should have been. It feels almost like the Queen tribute concert, where it's like there was a whole barrage of artists at their peak, and new energetic bands coming up and delivering it. It feels like it was a little kind of, I could see the tumbleweeds kind of blowing by with some of the stuff over the course of the day. And, what does that mean? Is it just that the great young artists that you mentioned are not getting enough support and attention and focus? But it really did paint a picture of very sort of elder statesmen, and then sort of a big empty space, and being filled very sparsely. So I'm not sure if that's a characterization or just who happened to be invited for that day, but it was an interesting overall feeling.
Yeah, there's plenty of bands out there that could have done a better job. Do we really need Aerosmith and Black Sabbath are unrelated? They're not even in the same lane. As far as genre, I see no similarities between them or a number of the other bands. Imagine Rob Halford out there fronting a full Priest. I mean, Priest is still in operation. I mean, that would have been my very first thing. Why the hell is Billy Corgan up there singing? I want to hear KK. Billy Corgan has nothing to do with Black Sabbath. I mean, apologies, Billy, but I mean, come on. So I think there was a lot of problems with who they chose. I think there were even older bands that that are still around. Like I said, Priest. Just put Priest up there. Put Megadeth up there. For God's sakes, because Megadeth hits on all cylinders way harder than Metallica does today, or even I would even argue Slayer, because they don't have Lombardo. I mean, no offense to Bostaph, but he ain't Lombardo. So,
Megadeth would have been a highlight for sure.
And Anthrax is just kind of, I don't know what Anthrax is now. I watched their performance, and it felt really good until the singing started, like you said. So, and I also just to just end it. Like I said, I made a personal choice. I'm going to be turning 53 here in a few months, and I wouldn't want to go out and do a show. I don't feel like that's my place in life now. I feel like what I'm doing now with the channel, recording in the studio, doing creative things on other fronts, tilling my own garden, whatever. I don't feel the need to go out on stage, and I just think that the question of whether there comes a point where you're too old to do, like the rock and roll thing or whatever, my answer is yes. Yes, you could record it. Yes, you can, but I'm not going to go like dress up and go strut around. I think there comes a point where that if you have dignity, or you can't hit the notes, or you can't play, then you shouldn't do it anymore. And that's just my opinion, and people argue with me in the comments all you want. I know if anybody who watches this is probably going to get pissed off at me, and that's fine. That's their right. But anything final you want to say before we sign off for today?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, it's a good debate. I have a hard time telling anyone or suggesting anyone that they shouldn't do it if they still feel moved to do it. Kind of like what you said about Ozzy. If it's in your heart and you really believe this is what you want to do, then I'm all for people continuing to do it as long as you're being upfront about what you're selling. But yeah, I think it highlights a problem. It's like there are so many fewer stages. There are so many fewer avenues for younger people to get out and do this compared to when we were doing it. And so what is the cost of that hanging around on the stage, and is there a way to create more space for everybody to be out there and doing it, encouraging? It seems like there are a lot of younger artists who are getting into guitar and expressing themselves through instruments and so forth. So I hope that more stages will follow as a natural result of that. But for now, it's kind of crowded, and yeah, everyone's got to sort of eye their own place on it and consider what feels appropriate. So yeah, a lot of food for thought from this big concert, and it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for the scene.
Yep. Well, I think that the old acts are just sucking the oxygen out of the room at this point. We got plenty of video footage and plenty of albums to listen to of great stuff, and we don't need to see rehashes. A lot of it too just feels like a cash grab in some cases. And I'm going to end on that note to really piss you off. And if you've watched the video to this point, please hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Argue with me all you want. I love it. I will respond. And shares are greatly appreciated. So hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time.